Hi everyone, welcome back to another tutorial. In today's video, we're going to learn how to make this beautiful trendy kaftan dress that has a kind of a pegged skirt effect and also a very subtle basque waist. If that is what you want to learn how to make for yourself, then keep watching this video to the very end and let's head straight to it. So firstly, we're starting with our basic bodice front from the top all the way to the hem. Now you want to notice that your hem should be in a sort of a pencil form, meaning it shouldn't be the same measurement with your hip. Okay, you should subtract at least 1 inches or 1.5 or 2 inches as the case may be, but it should not be the same measurement with your hip. So now we're going to work on our neckline to get the built-up collar neckline because it has a built-up collar neckline. I went ahead to attach a fresh pattern paper to this very part of my neckline towards the center front. And on top of the point where I started to curve in my neckline, I marked 1 inch upwards. And then, sorry, do not do this, please. Okay, I already did it before I figured that I'm not supposed to do it. All you have to do here is just to curve it in. Curve it in like so. Please ignore the straight line. No, do not do that. Okay, so just curve it in. All right, 1 inch and you just curve it in. Then you go ahead to get the other part to sit on the point where you started your neckline curve from. Okay, so now for my V-neck depth line, we are going to be checking that right now. I'm going ahead to take in 4.5 inches. This is for me. You can do whatever you want to do that works for you. Okay, so I'm going to be connecting that 4.5 inches to this very point of the 1 inch like so. At this point, if you haven't subscribed to this channel, do what to subscribe, like this video, click the bell notification icon so you'll be notified wherever I post lovely tutorials like this. Thank you so much. If you're a returning subscriber, I so much appreciate you. Thank you. So at this point, I'm cutting off the excess parts that we do not need. So on the waistline, like I said, this design has a basque waistline, but it is very subtle. So I'm coming down by, let's say, 2 inches or 1.5 inches. Very subtle basque waistline. It's not all that obvious. Then I'll go inwards by 1 inch. Then from my waistline, I'm going to be curving that in like so. So after I curved it in, this is what it looks like. I'll go in with my scissors now and cut it out. So I'll go ahead now to cut out my dart at the upper part of it, the waist dart, and also some part of the hip dart that went into the basque waist effect. I'm going to be cutting it all the way to the bust like so. And then at this point, you can decide just to cut your side bust dart, but here I decided to add a princess dart, an armhole princess dart, okay, to make my work kind of simpler for me and also make it more beautiful. So I went ahead to add an armhole princess dart, which I'm going to be using for this design, for the upper part of this design. As you can see, I did not contour the underbust. Please do not contour the underbust. Just marking your style line for the armhole princess dart, and then go ahead and create it exactly as I'm doing right now. I'll go ahead and close my side bust dart. On my sellotape, I'll hold it down. I'll smoothen out this part to remove every pointy edge. We do not want that. So this is what the upper part should look like. This is what your upper front bodies for this design should look like. We'll set it aside and we'll go ahead to work on the lower part, which is actually the very interesting part of this tutorial. So now this is what the lower part looks like. And can you see that 1 inch from where we curved in for our basque waistline? Okay. And also you want to consider this dart. There's also a dart there that is left. Now from that very point, that 1 inch point, I'm going to be marking 1.5 inches again, another 1.5 inches, and I'm marking those points, and also another 1.5 inches. Then I'll go ahead to use my ruler to rule a straight line. Okay, on that very point, I'm going to be using my ruler from those 1.5 inches points. Okay, starting from the 1 inch mark, I'm going to use my ruler to rule a straight line all the way to this point of the lower bodice like this, or the skirt like this. So I rule the second one, I'll move over to rule the third one, then I'll go over to rule the last one. So in total I had 4 lines, meaning I'm going to be having 4 pleats, or 4 pleats here. So at this point, this is what it looks like. Now you remember that dart, we are going to be putting the dart on the second line, the exact line where the dart falls in. So I measured the dart leg, and I went ahead to measure it out on that line. I also went ahead to measure the dart width, and I also went ahead to impute the dart width on that line where we are transferring the dart to. So it's just that simple. You measure the dart leg, put it on that line, measure the dart width, also transfer it to the line where you're transferring the dart to. And having done that, I'll go ahead to use my ruler to connect it to create our new dart. You have to take that dart out, because if you do not do, you'll find out that that part of the waist is not going to be fitted, and if you try to shape it from your side, it will bulge at that point, especially if your dart intake is not, you didn't take everything out. All right, so you have to do this. And now, can you see the new dart? So I'll go ahead to start slashing and spreading. This kind of design is called a pegged skirt design. It was gotten from a pegged skirt design. Okay. Now I'm cutting out that dart. I'll cut out the dart when I get to this point. Okay, this is the line where the dart is. Where the dart is, I'll go ahead and cut it out. Can you see that? So I'll go ahead to cut out the other one. And also go ahead to cut the other one, the fourth line. And you guys, this is what it looks like. Okay, so now I'll go ahead to get a fresh pattern paper so I can slash and spread on that fresh pattern paper. I got another color of pattern paper to spread it out here so you guys can understand what I'm doing clearly. Now you want to consider your center front. It is not flare. Your center front has to be straight on your fresh pattern paper, showing that it is still a straight skirt you're making. All right. So your center front has to, the grain line has to still be straight. So I went ahead to make sure that that is like that. I flattened it out very well. Remember, you're using a flat pattern. Flatten it out very well. Now you want to determine how wide you want your pleats to be, how bold. For me, I'm using 3 inches. You can decide to use more than 3 inches. Okay, I'm using 3 inches. You can also decide to use more than 3 inches. Remember, the bigger you go in, the more bold your pleats are. So I marked that 3 inches, and I dictated the half of it, which is 1.5, and I marked it. I'm also going to be doing the same thing to all the lines like so. So all my slash and spreads like so. When I mark 3 inches, I check, or I mark points for the midpoint of the 3 inches, which is 1.5. Make sure to flatten your patterns out. We are working with a flat pattern. So I did that up until the last one, and this is what it actually looks like. So now I started folding. If you notice, these pleats are like, it's kind of a box pleat that went inwards, kind of an inward box pleat. So I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to fold that. And that is what I did. I marked 1 inch out from between the both white papers. All right. I marked 1 inch out and I decided to fold on top of that 1 inch, making sure that the two white papers meet inside so that the green paper is on top of it, meaning we have 1 inch that is outer on top of it, if that makes sense. I hope you get. So that means if you use 3 inches to fold, you'll be having 1 inch on top like this. If you used 4 inches to fold, you'll be having 2 inches out like this as the green one on top. All right. So that was what I did. If there's another way you feel you can fold this to make it easier for you, you can go ahead and do it. Just make sure you fold so that you have that green pleat or green paper on top. Okay, because whatever you're doing now, you're transferring the notch, you're going to transfer the notch to your fabric, and that is how you're also going to fold on your fabric. So I went ahead to do the same thing to the whole of the slash and spreads to form the pleats for the pegged effect. Now, someone might wonder, since you're going to be cutting this and sewing on the fabric, why are you doing this first? Yes, you have to do this first. You have to do this first, even if you're sewing to your fabric, you have to do this first and cut it out so that you're not cutting the wrong part of it. So that when you're sewing it on your fabric, no part is shorter than the other. You're sure that whatever you're sewing or whatever you're pleating in is what you're supposed to pleat in. So please, you have to form it first on your pattern paper before you transfer to the fabric. It's very, very important and necessary. So after doing that, when you cut it out, you go ahead to loosen it to flatten your pattern out again the way it's supposed to be before you transfer to the fabric. So don't just go and just cut without folding the pleats. No, don't do that. Make sure you fold in the pleats first before you cut it out, before you cut out the parts that you do not need. So I went ahead to start cutting out. Remember, this size we are cutting is the side of your skirt where you're going to be having your side seam allowance. Okay. Do what to label also so you do not forget. So this is what your skirt pattern should look like. Now heading over to the back, which is actually very simple. Also remember that the hem of your back should be like pencil-like. Okay, form of a pencil skirt. So the first thing I'm going to do is on my waistline, I'm going to be cutting or separating the upper bodice from the lower bodice. So you want to know the back is not basked. So you just cut it out. Then I'll go ahead to cut the dart out. Like I said, the back is actually very simple. So we're cutting the dart out, meaning you're just going to be stitching up the dart for the back. So for the built-up neckline for the back, I added fresh pattern paper to this point of the neckline, like so, and the shoulder also like so. Then from the point where I curved in my neckline, I went ahead to mark 1 inch upwards. And so after doing that, I'm going to be curving it in like I did for the back. I'm going to be curving it in, sorry, like I did for the front. I'll curve it in and also slightly curve it in to meet the neckline. Then I'll go ahead to cut out the parts that we do not need. So here is it for the upper part of the back. And for the lower part of the back, we are not doing anything much to it. You also go ahead to cut out your darts, which you're going to be sewing up on your fabric. So now remember that the hem part of this dress is pencil, so it should have a slit. You can decide to overlap yours or do whatever you want, but you should have a slit to enable your work. Now to cut on the fabric, I'm folding my fabric into two. I'll go ahead and place the front skirt pattern on it like so. Remember to consider your center front and make sure it's on fold. I placed it like so. Then I use something to hold it down. All those notches you marked while folding the pleats on your paper, you want to transfer them to the fabric to help you understand how to fold it while sewing. And please do not discard this pattern until you are done forming the pleats. So when you get confused, you can go back to the pattern and then work on it. So here is the upper part of it. I've gone ahead to stitch it up. This is what it looks like. So let's head over to the lower part of it so we can form the pleats on the fabric. Now, considering the way we formed the pleats on the paper, I'm going to use the same method to form the pleats on the fabric. Can you see my paper there? I actually used it to check. So I'm also going to be forming the pleats on the fabric. Do not discard your paper until you are done forming the pleats, so that even when you get confused, you can also go back to the paper and check where you got it all wrong, and of course start all over again to form the pleats. So here I'm using my pin to form the pleats and hold it down. You should do this first before going to the sewing machine to sew it up. It will make your life a whole lot easier. So at this point, I'm almost done forming the pleats. This is the last one. So here is what the pleats look like. Can you see on both sides? I also have my center front intact. So I'll go ahead and join these two parts together like so. Make sure you mark your center front notches on both the up and the lower part of the dress. And at the end, this is what we have, you guys. Thanks for watching. Of course, the back should be plain. You just attach the back like the way you attach it to your normal dress, and then your sleeve. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next tutorial. Bye.